Reflecting on last Saturday's win at Forest Green, obviously, I know you had to shoot off to watch Bristol Rovers. You must have been thrilled with that performance overall.
Yeah, convincing win, pleasing display. Great to do it in front of the Sky cameras and a bigger audience. First away in of the season. Clean sheet and 4 well-worked goals. I know penalties involved in that, but we look good, we look bright, we look full of energy. Football games are all about platforms on the pitch and great energy at the top of the pitch, but solid elsewhere. And with no disrespect to Forest Green and that game, we didn't feel 4-0 flattered us in any way. It was fully deserved.
We saw Giovanni Brown applied in that new role. You must have been really pleased with how the front three, they look lethal at times.
Yeah, they all played well. They all contributed alongside the other ex-players who were on that football pitch, goalkeeper included. There was no poor performances last weekend. And the front three will probably get the headlines and a little bit of the attention on the back of the goals and the personnel within that. But cast your mind back to Shrewsbury for the last half an hour of that game. Those front three on the pitch then. And the outcome wasn't quite the same, not just in terms of the result, but in terms of where they got the ball and how clean they got the ball. So we've got to find ways of being successful and hurting the opposition when the opposition are slightly different to what they were at the weekend. And I'm sure we'll face that in the coming weeks.
As we mentioned, you headed off to Bristol Rovers after that game for their fixture against Accrington. What did you see there that you perhaps need to keep an eye on this weekend?
Well, the scoreline was only 1-0, but it was quite an open game. 2 teams with really attack-minded players and attack-minded systems. Very impressive. It's a great place to go and watch football at the Mem. And we were lucky we had fantastic seats really high up, so you got the full picture. They've got some excellent players. A stronger squad in the league now as it was a strong squad in the league last season. That they'll feel they're slightly underachieving in terms of results thus far. I know they've got a few injuries and a few personnel missing from within the group. But good players can always hurt the opposition. They score a lot of goals. They don't keep many clean sheets as yet. They'll be looking to improve that stat. And they'll be looking for some sort of consistency. I picture our team playing against Bristol Rovers. Yes, I could, because we played them so recently. Cast your mind back to last season, whether it was the 2 games in the league or the Papachons game as well. And we'll be looking for a positive outcome this weekend. But like we spoke about those front three last weekend, the ball's got to be in a certain place on that football pitch, and hopefully it's close to the opposition goal. If it's not, some of their outstanding players, and they have got outstanding players, will be looking to hurt us.
You mentioned the 2 home fixtures against Bristol Rovers last season, 4-0 and 5-0 at half-time in those 2. But I imagine Joey Barton's message to his players is that he obviously doesn't want that to happen again. And you never know what to expect with a Joey Barton team, do you?
No, but you sense that in our away game. It wasn't a more cagey game. It was just a more resolute display from both teams. We all valued a similar sort of thing in terms of getting to the ball and being hard to beat. We had to fight our way back from being 1-0 down in that fixture. And we actually finished that game really strongly, but didn't do enough to win the game. And that was 2 good teams going at it at the end of the season in a promotion race. And now it's the start of a new season, or relatively new in terms of the season. And I'm sure it's 2 good teams going at it again. 2 teams who want to play football. No matter what you say about Joey Barton's teams being unpredictable, they want to play good football. They want to play through teams. They want to hurt teams. And they've got some players who I really do admire. So I'm looking forward to the weekend. I'm actually looking forward to it because I think we're close to a sellout. Apart from the Plymouth game, it's the game which feels like a bit of a derby. They come fantastically well supported. All those gas heads behind the goal being very noisy. Our club secretary, Andy Gillard, has got a lot of friends who are Bristol Rovers fans. So if there's ever a game in our fixture list we have to look out for the benefit of Andy Gillard, it's certainly this weekend.
Moving on to squad availability now. We saw this week Pedro Borges and Harrison King joined Plymouth Parkway on loan. Given that those 2 players were on the bench last week and have been on the bench in some games this season, does that perhaps hint that those players that are out injured are perhaps close to coming back?
No, it's only a youth loan, so it means we can recall them for this weekend. Unfortunately, that means we've not got any of those players you're mentioning or talking about back in the fold this weekend, but they are getting closer. It's just important that, I have to word this the right way, despite these young players being in the first team squad and being on the bench, we're only going to have to use them if we are low, or even lower than we are in terms of injuries and suspensions and so on and so forth. So they're getting great exposure and experience being close to the group, but it's very difficult to put them on the pitch, and they have to keep on developing. So getting midweek games for Plymouth Parkway and other loan teams is vitally important in terms of their progression. With no disrespect to the under-18s level and the under-18s games programme, Harrison King and possibly Pedro have almost outgrown that level of football, and they need to be exposed to men's football. They're watching it and they're close to it with ourselves, and they also need to keep on playing it alongside the exposure we're giving them.
I imagine that means both players are available for Southampton on Tuesday.
Yes, in that game, yeah. And I've said previously, I think I said in the press call last week, unfortunately, we'll be playing a really young team against Southampton because it's needs must. I've always respected that competition. The club have always respected that competition, but with the injuries in those units we've got at the moment, we have to somehow protect some personnel ready for the following week of a 3-game a week league week. So that will be a very young team when we play against Southampton, but we're still expecting to be competitive.
Are you still looking for a loan opportunity for Sonny Cox?
Yes, we are, but he's on the bench for ourselves at the moment. We've got great loan opportunities at Southern League level. With no disrespect to that level, if Sonny Cox and ourselves want to be serious about him being a first-team player sooner rather than later with Exeter City, he needs to play a higher level than that. We might get him some game time at that level up until Christmas, but ideally he needs to be exposed to National League level. If that's National League North and South, then so be it. But ideally National League, Premier League, because he needs to find out about what it's like to play against professional footballers, senior footballers who train every single day. And we want him to be close to our group, either second half of this season or next season. And we feel the best way for that to happen is exposure to that National League level. Now, if we can't obtain that, then he has got to play football. But currently, he's next on the pitch in terms of our centre forwards. If we keep playing 3 centre forwards in a starting lineup, then Harry Smith and Sonny Cox are next in line.
Looking at the bigger picture over the next month or so, it's Saturday, Tuesday now until the very end of October. That's a lot to put on the players. Given there's only two league games and probably a couple of FA Cup games scheduled in November, could this schedule have been stretched out a little bit? Obviously, I know the World Cup is coming out, but that doesn't affect League One and League Two too much.
It could have been, but I think the EFL are probably a little bit worried about call-offs in that World Cup period. They'll also be worried about call-offs for any reason in the next month, and then a backlog of fixtures, something we've had in the past and don't want in the future. But you're absolutely right. It's not ideal to play Saturday, Tuesday throughout the month and 9 games on the back of the injuries we've got at the moment and the size of the squad. But we can't about, and you want games to come thick and fast. You're winning games of football and playing well, and we feel in a good place at the moment. And as soon as Saturday's out, we'll focus on Tuesday. That'll be a slightly different group approaching that game, and then we go into a pretty brutal week when we go to Barnsley and Charlton and then Oxford at home. But we have to look forward to these games of football. It could be totally different in terms of the opposition we could be playing in League Two, with no disrespect to League Two. So no matter what happens, any matter of games, I don't want us to complain or to feel tired. Fans as well, and the club as well, and the press as well. We have to keep looking forward to what's next.
Right, and finally, then we're looking at pretty close to a sellout already for Saturday. But on Sunday, over 2,000 tickets have been sold to watch the women's game against Bournemouth here at the Park. Given the summer and the Lionesses winning the Euros, it's great for the women's team to have what will be their record attendance on Sunday.
Yeah, great exposure for the club, great exposure for the women's team, great exposure and publicity for women's football. You're dead right, on almost a crest of a wave on the back of what happened in the summer, and we all watched and admired that happening. And Exeter City wants to try and replicate that in terms of success. We're a family club. A lot of girls, a lot of women watch our first team games as well. So great that we're close to a sellout on Saturday, and then the ticket sales are so strong for Sunday. Probably the strength of the club at the moment, and how the feel-good factory is there in all departments, where the community, the women's team, and certainly the men's team as well. But we'll all be there with half an eye on what happened on Saturday, but we'll certainly be supporting the girls on Sunday.